Welcome back. Why is the Senate getting nowhere asking the House to get significant cuts? Why is it hard for the government to get a handle on fraud? And why is the gold market continuing to move forward? I'm Eric Sapanic, this is John Caro, and this is the Gold Spot. Well, John, the Senate is approaching the House saying, hey, the budget cuts aren't going to be deep enough. We're looking at some big numbers when it comes to raising that debt ceiling. Can you elaborate on what's going on right now?
Well, starting out, it's business as usual. The Senate wants the House to find real budget cuts to avoid raising the debt ceiling, and they're talking about $5 trillion over the next 2 years. The first interesting number is that the first time the United States hit $5 trillion as a deficit was in 1995, which means it took about 219 years to get to that number. Today we're at 36 trillion, and for the next 2 years they want to spend another 5 trillion. It's business as usual. They are trapped in the entitlement program trap, and if you listen to the senators and the congressmen as they give their public statements, they're talking about nickel and dime stuff, and then in the next breath they want to protect whatever they need for their own constituents. So it's going to be horse trading as usual, and I don't think anything's going to change. The challenge is they want to reduce the spending, but they can't reduce Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and food stamps. And what's left is a very small amount of money compared to trillions of dollars. And even the public statements, the resistance so far is only coming from 30 members of the House and Senate together. That's 30 out of 500 plus people. I just don't see how we're going to get out of this trap.
Very small amount of people, for sure.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, I think that we do need to reiterate that it is really Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, and then also Social Security. That's where the majority of all this massive debt is coming from. And neither side of the aisle is willing to go into that sector and make some real cuts.
And there's fat that can be found and cut in Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. There's waste, there's inefficiency. They just don't want to touch it. One of the issues we want to talk about is fraud as it applies to our money in the government and how we're losing money. The government struggles with controlling the fraud. You've been looking into that. What have you found?
Well, I mean, one of which is definitely going to be the DOGE department, the Department of Government Efficiency. And I know everyone's been hearing about this because Elon Musk, and unfortunately this has become very political. And it really shouldn't be, because when it comes to fraud is such a massive problem. And there has been a lot of exposure that has come from the DOGE team, but it's not all just from the DOGE side. It isn't necessarily just fraud, because although you might not agree that we should be spending, $35 million on a Sesame Street in the Middle East or something like that, if it was approved, that's not fraud. I mean, it is something that was passed in wasteful spending and something that should be rectified for sure. But we're talking about straight fraud. You might have seen it, but 60 Minutes did a very interesting piece where they were talking about some of the fraud problems that are going on in the United States. Went to the director of the FBI when it came to the digital side of things. But I mean, just on 4 nations alone, like China and Russia, we know that there's somewhere between the levels of around $500 billion to $750 billion a year in straight fraud, stealing from a lot of these entitlement programs as well. Now, think about this. Like we were just talking about, it took us, from 1776 to 1995 to accumulate, $5 trillion in debt. Yet we're almost at $1 trillion in fraud just being straight stolen from us on a yearly level. That's a staggering number to consider. We have got ourselves one massive problem, because really the key issue at the end of the day is not only do we not have the robust systems in order to police this type of action, but nobody cares in the government. And that's the bigger problem. The fact is that nobody is truly willing to take the steps necessary to stop this type of thing. And with that type of fiscal irresponsibility, the outlook to the dollar is not looking good at all. So this week was a pretty big week because it marks the 1 month mark where gold has traded over $3,000 per ounce. And everyone wants to know, John, why?
Well, one of the big drivers is gold has been designated as a tier 1 asset for central banks, which allows them to use it to meet their reserve requirements. So that's going to drive the price. Another reason is, and we've heard this before, the high level of uncertainty around the world. All the economies are intertwined. They're all worried about what's going to happen fiscally. And the central bank buying of gold keeps going at a rate of 1,000 tons a year. And I don't see that slowing down anywhere soon. Some of these countries are preparing for the potential for the US dollar to not be the reserve currency. There's no timing on this. Nobody can predict it. But their behavior tells us they're worried. They keep buying gold. And yet none of their money is backed by gold. So I think all these things are driving the price up. And I don't see it coming down because there's no diminishing of the level of uncertainty around the world.
There's no breaks. There's just no breaks when it comes to spending. And I mean, that's really, I think if anyone takes anything from this interview, that it should be that. I mean, until we see something that shows us breaks, I don't see the gold market stopping, and I sure as heck don't see the dollar having a better future than it does right now.
So let's look at the numbers one more time. We're approaching $37 trillion in debt this September. If Congress does what it's talking about doing in the next 10 days, they're going to add another $5 trillion, which makes $42 trillion in debt 2 years from now. And that's without any increase in spending.
Or a higher interest rate.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, with that being said, I think we're going to wish you a farewell for the weekend. We'll see you next week right here on The Gold Spot.
If you enjoyed today's Gold Spot, like or subscribe to both our YouTube and Rumble channels. Also, comment below if you have any questions or if you'd like to hear us talk about a specific topic in a future video.